Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. I'm a little bit apprehensive about today's podcast because you're about to hear my deepest, most personal dreams. Don't judge me. Welcome back to Zestology. Hope you're doing okay. Hope your January is going well. Are you ready to go back to night school? That's what we're going to be doing in today's podcast. Andrew Holecek is the author of several books and scientific papers on lucid dreaming, including Dreams of Light and Dream Yoga. He's a member of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and he's known worldwide, takes seminars and workshops various all over the world, internationally, on lucid dreaming and meditation. So today we're looking at what goes on at night and how the brain reorders itself and how we can start to interpretate and learn. Interpretate, is that a word? Definitely not. How we can start to interpret and learn from various dreams. As I say to Andrew in this podcast, it's something that I used to not be into and now I am. And I feel like I've learned quite a lot from my dreams recently. Last night I had an extraordinary dream, but it is not as extraordinary as the one you're going to hear me describe in this podcast. Here he is, Andrew Holecek on Zestology. When I was younger, I used to feel like there was only a certain amount of benefit from analysing dreams. I thought, oh, well, you know, the cow jumped over the moon and how could that possibly have any relevance to my day-to-day life? And now, with the benefit of a few years of hindsight, I absolutely love analysing dreams. The problem is it's quite hard to remember them sometimes, isn't it, Andrew?
Right, no kidding.
So how do we do it?
Yeah, how do we do it? Well, you know, memory is obviously a mental faculty, and it can be exercised. So there's two ways to enhance memory and in particular dream recall. So very interesting that the word for meditation in the Tibetan language, drempa, literally means to recollect. And so memory is absolutely positively enhanced through meditation. So if you want to increase that memory muscle altogether, you know, every time you're distracted in your meditation and every time you come back to your breath or to your candle or to your mantra, that's actually, exercising that memory muscle. So that's one general way, Tony. And then specifically for evening, you can increase dream recall, believe it or not. It may seem almost patronizingly simple, by starting to set a very firm, resolute intention, aspiration before you go to sleep. Literally, that tonight I will start to remember more of my dreams. I will remember more of my dreams. And then there's just a host of other things you can do. Journaling is super helpful because that shows that you're putting your money where your mouth is. Waking up intermittently throughout the night, especially in what I refer to as prime time, dream time. That's like the last 2-3 hours of the night. That's mostly when we're in the REM sleep, the dreaming sleep space. So that's a really helpful way to kind of mine dreams. So those are just a few of the many tips, Tony.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, I'm quite interested when you talked about the intention. My background is in NLP and I love kind of giving the unconscious mind little kind of intentions and questions before I go to sleep or before I meditate. And I think it's very helpful. And I know that when you were putting together this book, you kind of looked into modern knowledge from the West, but also ancient wisdom. And how much is there in terms of ancient wisdom, in terms of giving the mind these intentions? Because I remember my mum saying before she had an alarm clock, she was always taught by her parents to bang her head on the pillow the amount of times corresponding to the hour that she wanted to wake up in the morning. And it always works. And even now, she never uses an alarm clock. And really what's going on is she's giving her unconscious mind a suggestion to wake up at 7 by hitting her head 7 times on the pillow. But I mean, it's not quite ancient wisdom, but it is interesting how these things, it's kind of forgotten wisdom that now, isn't it? Because we've all got an alarm clock.
Yeah, no kidding. But it goes back really very far, Tony. In fact, I have to share, I was attending a dream yoga retreat a number of years ago. So, we haven't really talked about it yet, but lucid dreaming is when you wake up to the fact that you're dreaming while you're dreaming.
Okay.
Dream yoga is when you use that lucidity for spiritual transformation. And so I was attending a dream yoga retreat by a very high lama. And the only induction method, the only technique he gave for initiating lucid dreaming, let alone just dream recall, was intention. And so the interesting, I love wordplay, and the origin of the word intend literally means to stretch towards, to reach towards. And so what you're doing is you're stretching the mind, and that's why dream yoga is actually called a yoga. It's actually stretching the conscious mind, lucidity. Lucidity is kind of a code word for consciousness or awareness. You're stretching awareness from the day into the night. And so intention goes back very deep, especially in the Buddhist tradition, where it's actively cultivated through things like aspiration, quite specifically, and other techniques where you kind of stretch the mind towards awareness in these usually non-lucid states. And so in modern terms, Tony, I like to think of it as a kind of a dream hacking, where we're hacking using these methods into previously restricted domains of consciousness. And you mentioned, interestingly, your work with NLP. I'm also a fan of NLP. And what makes lucid dreaming, let alone dream yoga, so fascinating is it's one of these very unique states of consciousness where it's kind of a hybrid state where the conscious mind can't actually meet the unconscious mind quite directly, because you're still in the dream, i.e. mostly unconscious arena, but now you're fully aware to what's happening. That's the conscious part. And that's where lucid dreaming just becomes so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of learning more from dreams. And when you talked about lucid dreaming, being aware of the fact that you're in the dream, are most of us able to lucid dream, or are most of us not aware of the fact we've been dreaming until after we wake up?
Yeah. Well, yeah, both. So anybody who dreams can have a lucid dream. Most people, like you suggest, Tony, most of their dreams are non-lucid. In other words, the usual dream where you think what's taking place in the dream is real. But with some practice, and I can give you some tips about how to actually do it, is absolutely positively something that you can train yourself to do. Just to give you some numbers, just to show you how much potential is here. We have about 500,000 dreams during the course of an average life. That amounts to about 6 years spent in the dream space during the course of an average life. And so what I often say here is, like, people say, well, why should I be interested in these practices? Why bother? My life is so busy. Well, it's almost like adding night school, night shift. You're adding up 6 years of consciousness to your life. You can get a PhD in less than 6 years. So think about all the things you can learn. Think of all the things you can do. Learn about who you are, who the mind is, what the mind is, how it works if you attain lucidity. So it has tremendous kind of pedagogical value.
Yeah. And then I totally subscribe to that. This is your unconscious mind making sense of the world and coming up with all sorts of weird and wonderful and creative interpretations of the things going on in your everyday life. And there is a lot to learn. Sometimes, though, I think we need the guidance of someone like you to help us through, because it can be very hard to work out what is going on in a dream. So presumably that's the other aspect of what you do, interpreting some of the events in our dreams. Yeah,
it's a really interesting question, Tony. Here's what's worth throwing into the mix, is that the truly fascinating thing about the world of dreams altogether is that there's just a vast spectrum of things you can do. And so when people work with things like dream interpretation, and that is such an interesting, super viable thing to do, that's just one bandwidth of what you can do in the dream state. Lucid dreaming, dream yoga, and then there's also what's called sleep yoga, which is even beyond that. It's interesting, Tony. It's a different frequency, a different kind of bandwidth of application towards what you do, because with lucid dreaming, dream yoga, you're not interested in an interpretation. It's a little bit like the difference between meditation and therapy. So like during the day, if you're doing meditation during the day, you're not interested in the content of your mind. You're interested in altering your relationship to that content. And so in exactly the same way with lucid dreaming, you're not that interested in the content. So you're not really interpreting it. You're working with it. You're actually working with your dreams as a way to work with your mind. Because when you think about it, what are dreams made of? Well, they're made of mind. They're just made of your mind, free from sensory constraint. And this is one reason dreams are so wild, because the parental function, what's called the prefrontal cortex, that's like the parent of your mind, that goes offline generally when we're dreaming. And so this is why dreams can be so crazy and wild, because there's certain aspects of your brain that literally kind of check out. But when you become lucid, those aspects check back in. And that's where you can really start to use these dreams to transform yourself.
Right. Yeah. So really, we're not looking to interpret them. We're looking to learn from them. That's what you're saying.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Dream interpretation, again, it's absolutely viable. I'm not dismissing it at all. This is just a different beast. This is about transforming your relationship to your mind as it expresses itself in the dream state.
So how can we do that? And obviously, I know you will have piqued the interest of people listening to this. How can we start to learn from our dreams? And if you want an example of a dream, I've got a good one for you.
Okay.
I have a almost 2-year-old now, a toddler. And in the month or two before he was born, I had a kind of a recurring dream that I was at a festival on a mountaintop. And I could see a fire sweeping down the hill towards us at this kind of wonderful festival around a pool, kind of on a mountain. And I could see this fire sweeping down the hill. And the next moment, when I looked up, the fire was so much closer. Nobody knew whether to hide or just kind of accept the fact that this fire was going to wash over us. It seemed we were certain to face oblivion. And then I woke up. So I think I've provided my own kind of learning to that, but I'd love to know what you think as well.
Well, I'm always very leery to kind of step in and overtly interpret another person's dream, because it's in a vocabulary that is specific to you, which is why things like dream dictionaries and any legitimate dream scholar will tell you, there might be just a little bit of validity to that, but you can put those in a dusty bin. The mind, in fact, like you're suggesting, will be sending different types of dreams. A lot of our dreams, I have to say, are just literally just neurological noise. They don't carry meaning whatsoever.
Right.
But the ones like you're talking about do. And so if you want to talk about dream interpretation, then you do a couple things. First of all, you start to keep a dream journal. You write these dreams down, especially if they're recurring dreams, because recurring dreams, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche talks about this. Recurring dreams basically are sending up a secondary message, fundamentally saying you're not a good listener. That's why they keep recurring.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense.
So what you do then is you get your dream journal, keep it on the side of your bed. It's kind of like your private diary of the nocturnal mind. You write the dream down, you date it, you title it. That starts to pay homage to that dreamscape. And then what you do, especially with recurrent dreams, is you take your marker and you highlight, when you write that down, the specific recurring patterns. And then my favorite way, there's so many ways to work with dream interpretation. My favorite way for sure is the work of Eugene Gendlin, sometimes pronounced Gendlin, who had a very fascinating way. Basically, he wrote a beautiful book called Let Your Body Interpret Your Dreams. And what this means is when you go over the dream, usually the very first impulse you have when you wake up from that dream or when you go over it to work with it. And by the way, let me just share this with you as well. Really legitimate dream workers will tell you it's not at all uncommon to work with one dream 6 months, a year. Really spend the time. It can take a while to peel back the layers of the onion to see what the dream is actually fully telling you. And then when you go over it, pay very close attention. Gimlin talked about this quality of felt sense, where what you want to do is pay exquisite attention to your body, because that's where these dreams are coming from. Candace Pert, the neuroscientist, goes so far as to say, your body is your unconscious mind. This is not just metaphysical mumbo jumbo. She's a neuroscientist. And so therefore, let your body interpret the dream. So you go over the dream, something will stick out, something will ping, and you'll have a first felt sense of it. Something in your body will click. And you want to listen to that, because very often what happens is that feeling will be shot up into your thinking conceptual mind, and you'll start to put a spin on it. And the minute you start to put a spin on it, you're misinterpreting it, because your body, stay with that felt sense, explore that. And every time you come back, see if in fact that same felt sense is kind of ignited. That will help you interpret the dream. And then if you do, you'll find that, especially a recurring dream, it will stop, or it will shift in a way that you'll notice. One final thing, and then we can talk about this further, is that you can actually incubate a dream, Tony. You can set the intention. I've done this as well, where I've had some confusing dreams, difficult to interpret. I will actually incubate. I will set an intention before going to sleep, sending a very deep, heartfelt kind of message to my subconscious mind. Help me understand this dream. And then very often I'll have a commentary on the dream. It's so wild. The dream will actually help me interpret the previous dream. And so this is classic dream incubation from the ancient traditions, but now used for psychological purposes vis-a-vis interpretation. So something like that really works.
Yeah. Because I suppose many issues crop up when we deny some of our kind of deepest held emotions. And us Brits are pretty good at that. And we kind of plod on without kind of acknowledging all the kind of deepest insecurities and fears, or even kind of bringing them out into the open. And I suppose that's the same with dreams as well, if you're not kind of acknowledging what's going on. And I think my dream, the one that I was telling you about there, I think that was obviously, it was a month before my son was born. There was a real anxiety around the unknown and a kind of a fear around it.
Absolutely. And really, this is one of the great gifts of working, again, with dreams altogether, is that ever since Freud, and really what Freud did, he didn't really invent the so-called unconscious mind. He just rediscovered it for the West. He was a dream innovator. These ancient teachings going back literally thousands and thousands of years, they worked with unconscious processes in the unconscious mind, predating Freud literally by thousands of years. Yeah. But the idea, what Freud did that's very helpful here, is that really, backstage runs on stage. The unconscious mind dictates to an extraordinary degree our so-called conscious lives. Most of our lives are we live on kind of automatic pilot. We're driven by these unconscious impulses. We're completely unaware of them. It's a little bit like Christ, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And so the dreams will often send up messages, for sure. You can have dreams they're called precognitive dreams, or dreams of premonition, where your unconscious mind will actually send you, and there's a vast literature on this, dreams accurately foretelling future events. And there's a fantastically haunting video you can see on YouTube about this man who had dozens of dreams before this infamous American Airlines plane crash in Chicago. He predicted it. And he called the airlines a dozen times saying, there's a plane that's going to be going down. So this stuff gets really interesting. The farther down the unconscious mind you go.
Yeah. Interrupting this podcast for a moment to talk about, living stronger and boosting the immune system and helping the digestion. It all starts in the gut. And as you know, my podcast partners here on Zestology, I only have podcast partners that I believe in, I really think are good. And today's definitely falls in that category. P3OM are probiotics that I take. They improve digestion and nutrient absorption. They help your digestive tract and immune system stay strong and healthy. And I just think that probiotics, a good probiotic, is a really good idea at the moment as well. I just think there's a few things that you want to be taking. Probably you want to be taking some magnesium, like Magnesium Breakthrough. Probably a little bit of vitamin C and zinc. I take that every day. And probably a good probiotic like P3OM, one that stays in the stomach and survives the stomach acid. Okay, so it survives in your body but doesn't compete with the other strains of probiotic that might be going on in your stomach as well. You're as protected as possible from the growth of bad bacteria and other pathogens when you take P3OM. If you're interested, head to bioptimizers.com/zestology and use the code zestology10. So all the details are at bioptimizers.com/zestology. And if you're in the UK, head to bioptimizers.co.uk and you can use the same code, zestology10. I hope that helps with your immune system. I do feel like January is a time of kind of renewal and kind of thinking about the year ahead, and never more so than at the moment with all the challenges that are going on. It really has been the most extraordinary couple of months, and I just hope that 2021 continues to get better. And better than 2020 as well. And boosting the immune system is all part of that. Bioptimizers.com/zestology. You'll get your code there. You'll get your discount. Let me know how you get on. Now, back to the podcast. Now, well, give me a particularly juicy example of perhaps kind of a learning that you've taken from, because I love the way, as you say, this stuff gets better and better the more you kind of dive into it, and you've been doing that very deeply for many years, and you've now written a book about it. What is an example in your life of a dream that has perhaps been recurring, or perhaps you wrote it down and over a period of time you've taken some learnings from it and it's helped you?
Yeah, well, let me tell you the way I work with this now. I don't tend to have too many recurring dreams anymore, Tony, simply because, I've been working with my dreams for 40 years now, and I have a pretty sensitive relationship. I do lucid dreaming, dream yoga every single night. So I don't have too many of those types of dreams, recurring dreams, because I tend to get the message rather quickly. But let me share one dream. I just had this one a couple nights ago, and let me share this one with you, because this shows you just the elegance and the beauty of what's available when we're sleeping.
Yeah.
And I've been in conversation with some neuroscientists at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're actually trying to create a design study to prove that it's possible for people to have full awareness, consciousness, not only in the dreaming state, Tony, which is lucid dreaming, but in lucid sleep. In other words, you can have full awareness even in deep dreamless sleep. It's a very difficult study to set up. So we've been in conversation with them. And I'm trying to up my game to actually have these experiences for myself, just in case, they need a guinea pig in the lab. Mm-hmm. And so check this out. So I had a dream. I've been setting this kind of incubation, not a specific one, but a general, like, hey, help me, dreamscape, help me come up with some techniques that will allow me to have lucidity in the deep dreamless state. And so the other night, I had a really powerful lucid dream. So I'm aware, so I'm in the dream. I wake up to the fact that I'm dreaming. Oh, here we go. This is cool. Happens to me a lot because I practice it a lot, right? And so here's where it got really interesting, Tony. So I'm in this place, and there's this like little chaise lounge with a little blanket on it. And so again, it's like, I'm not even sure where this came from, because it wasn't like my original idea, even though I kind of incubated before I went to sleep. And so what I did is, in the middle of this lucid dream, so I am sleeping, I am dreaming. In the middle of this lucid dream, I actually lie down on this chaise lounge, put this little white blanket on me, and actually take a nap in the middle of my dream. It was wild.
Wow.
And in fact, it was a way for me to drop even deeper than the dream state into the deep dreamless state. And so I want to throw that into the mix, just to show you and your listeners the unbelievable potential that awaits any intrepid explorer of the nocturnal mind. That, yes, dream interpretation, wonderful. Lucid dreaming, super cool. Dream yoga, unbelievable. And then, the kind of graduate school stuff is what's called luminosity or sleep yoga, somewhat connected to yoga nidra from the Hindu tradition. where you can actually attain lucidity. It may seem like you got to be kidding me, but the wisdom traditions have said this for thousands of years. You can maintain lucidity, awareness, even in the deep dreamless state. So that to me, that because it just happened the other day, is what immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean that's great. And yoga nidra, actually, my other half is a yoga teacher, and we quite often do yoga nidra. She stays awake, and I nearly always fall asleep. I'm very good at falling asleep and napping, and I know that's not quite the point of it, but I always feel great afterwards.
Well, here's one other practice. So just to show you how much is here. So when you're working with yoga nidra, and I work with this as well. The iRest version is a more kind of contemporary application of yoga nidra. Nidra just means sleep in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
There's another type of dreaming here, Tony, that I throw this out because this is even easier than lucid dreaming. It's called liminal dreaming. The technical name prior to this kind of new term was called hypnagogic dreaming. Beautiful term, which means literally leading towards sleep, leading towards the god of sleep, which is hypnos. And liminal dreaming is super interesting. Everybody can do it because it's exactly what you're talking about, Tony, when you're in that kind of dreamy, not quite here, not quite awake state that yoga nidra takes you into. You can actually use yoga nidra as a way to explore liminality. And this becomes just a fascinating way to watch the kind of plasma of your mind when your daytime consciousness goes offline. As you're going to sleep, you notice, this is very interesting, I can just plant this idea for you and your listeners to play with tonight. You go to sleep, you're still thinking, you're kind of, ruminating about the day, thinking. And then you'll notice that thoughts start to transition into images. So you're thinking less, but you're starting to have more images. And so this space is actually called thought-image amalgamation, where you can watch the thoughts transform to images. And then if you're still watching carefully, you can then watch that transformation go not only from thought-image, but actually into very short micro dreamlets, little dreams that only last about 3, 4, 5 seconds. These are completely viable lucid dreams. They're very short, but the brevity doesn't lessen the profundity. And you can do some super cool things in that state, watching your mind transition from the waking state to the pre-sleep state, to the dream state, and then even deeper. And so I just throw this out there so people go, wow, I had no idea this was even possible. How cool is this?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm very inspired to investigate my dreams a little bit more. What is one book, Andrew, that you would recommend other people in terms of what? It can be anything. It can be something on this topic or something that has inspired you in general.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. Obviously, instead of just putting out my own lemonade stand and recommending my own books, in terms of this world, probably the book I would recommend is from my dear friend Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, the Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep. I like it because it's one of the very rare renderings of both dream yoga and sleep yoga. There's very few books that write on that. And Tenzin Wangyal, Wangyal, is a wonderful meditation master from what's called the Bon tradition, Bon, predates Tibetan Buddhism. And in this book, he just explores with real elegance this type of dream work. So I might recommend that for people who are interested in this world and want to open their eyes to new ways of relating to the dream and sleep space. Tenzin Wangyal's is a really elegant book that can help them, start to just see the infinite possibilities that are available to them. So that might be the first that comes to mind.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, all this stuff, that book and everything we've discussed, it's all about kind of going deeper, isn't it? I like that. There's one of the nice things about podcasts is that you get to explore topics in depth, and I think a lot of what we're talking about today is getting to explore ourselves in a little bit more depth, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And let me just throw for some of the deeper divers listening, there is actually a little bit of neurological footing. I'm a very big fan of science. I've actually co-authored some scientific papers on this material. And, it's very easy to say, lucid dreaming represents the pedagogy or the education of the future. But let me just share one or two things with you, just so your readers realize the kind of scientific validity behind these proclamations. There's one neuroscientist out of UC Berkeley. This is also a fantastic book for just basically understanding sleep and dream altogether. Literally, the title of the book is Why We Sleep. His name is Matthew Walker.
Oh, yeah, I've read that. And I've interviewed Matt Walker. I met him in London. Very, very good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you may remember, and if not, he only relegates, again, he's a hard-hitting neuroscientist. And he devotes just 3 pages to lucid dreaming. But at the very end of these brief 3 pages, he says this. He says, it is entirely possible that lucid dreamers represent the next iteration in Homo sapiens evolution. And what he means by that is that, and I'll just say this very briefly, because again, when I first came across the neuroscience behind this, I found it so interesting. When we literally, the part of the brain that is most recent in human evolution, if you were to take your eyes, Tony, and literally right now just kind of raise, obviously just look straight up, you'd be looking at the part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain, by the way, that apes don't have, which is why their heads slope back. So this is the most literally, the leads, it's an interesting metaphor and literal. It's literally the frontal edge of human evolution are these aspects of the brain. Well, check this out. So when you wake up in a lucid dream, it's called metacognition, knowing about knowing, awareness of awareness. Those aspects, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the precuneus, and a couple other fancy names for this part of your brain, they light back up on the brain scanners. They actually come back online. That's what becomes conscious when you have a lucid dream. So how interesting is that? That this literal frontal part of human evolution, the frontal part of your brain leading the edge, is actually what comes back online when you attain lucidity. So I throw that out there for some of the more serious listeners to just suggest that this could, once the incubation and the induction methods are refined, is a great gift of the West. That really, imagine every night you can add 1 to 2 hours of night shift. You can do amazing things in the lucid dream state. And so I want to share that with the deeper listeners because it might inspire them to say, whoa, this is kind of interesting. And then just take the next steps.
Have you played with binaural beats at all?
I am familiar with these systems. I have a lot of respect for them. They work with, as you know, this process called neurophenomenology, pardon the big word, which is where, when you have a particular experience, there's a part of the brain that actually has a signature correlative to that. So I haven't worked with that one. I've worked with others. And they work. They're awesome. They're one of the great gifts of the Western world, is using these really highfalutin innovations, electronic gadgets and the like, and even some substances like galantamine that can absolutely help bring about certain states of consciousness. So I have a tremendous respect for a lot of those skillful means. There's also transcranial electrical stimulators. Those are a little bit trickier. There's these dream goggles. Those things also work. So there's a lot out there now. That's the great gift you mentioned earlier, the great gift of bringing the wisdom of the ancient East and the knowledge of the modern West, bring them together.
Yeah, the great gift, the knowledge of banging your head on the pillow 7 times if you want to wake up at 7 a.m.
Beautiful, exactly. And that's what I try to point out in my book is, that's my riff. I'm a member of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. So I work with both East and West, modern and ancient, the technologies, East and West. And this kind of broad spectrum integral approach really works. I'm glad you brought that stuff up. It absolutely has a place.
Great. Yeah. Well, listen, one more question, and that is, what is one tip that you would recommend for living with more energy and vitality?
Fantastic. Be present for your life. Literally. If I had to recommend just one thing, the single most important thing I do, the most transformative thing I've done for the last almost 50 years is meditation. Working, finding yourself more present to your life by training your awareness to be more fully there. And so if your listeners aren't already engaged in some sort of practice, And again, this is completely neutral technology, even though it's connected to wisdom traditions. Nobody has a patent on meditation. It's by far the most important thing I've done. And if you really want to wake up to your life, you can wake up to your mind and allow yourself to be literally more fully aware and present. And many studies have shown that, this is no exaggeration, Tony, that meditators literally, not a metaphor, meditators literally see more, feel more, taste more, hear more, because they're not so caught up in the thinking mind. So they literally come to their senses. They literally experience more life because they're more present for it. So that would be my kind of take-home message. Work with your mind and your heart through the practice of meditation.
Yeah, I think I agree. I do experience life more vividly when I meditate, it's just I could probably do with doing it for longer, to be quite honest. But but 10 minutes is better than no minutes, isn't it? So
Absolutely. Yeah, and even here's the deal. This is no kidding. I teach this more and more right now, and I'm not kidding, Tony. This comes from it's called the Mahamudra tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. It's literally, my friend, a one breath meditation. I'm not kidding. During the course of one inhalation and one exhalation, you bring your awareness fully to that one breath. And I do it all the time, especially when I hear difficult political news, difficult news around the virus. I feel myself contract. I feel myself start to react. I pause. I take a one breath meditation session. And just that, not even 10 minutes, Tony, we're talking one breath. One breath meditation helps me connect to my body, to my heart, gets me away from my reactivity, helps me be more responsive. One single breath has the potential to put you back in contact with your heart, body, and therefore your life. So when we talk about meditation, oh my goodness, you can do it right here, right now, on the spot.
Yeah, great. I just did that, and it was very nice. Andrew, lovely to talk to you. Congratulations on your book coming out, the Lucid Dreaming Workbook. I'm just looking at it on Amazon. It is the #1 new release in dreams, so that's excellent.
Yeah, appreciate it, my friend. Yeah, thank you for bringing me on. Total delight to talk to you. And until next time, pleasant dreams.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you too. And thanks for coming on Zestology.
My privilege. Take care, Tony.
Thank you to Andrew. Thank you for listening as well. Just before I go, a quick reminder of my podcast partner for today. It is P3OM Probiotics, something which I tend to take before I go to sleep at night. Sometimes I wonder if some of the supplements I take at night do help with the dreaming or do kind of encourage dreaming a little bit. I've been playing with a few supplements recently at night, including vitamin B6, specifically P5P, which is the kind of activated form of B6. I've also been trying TMG at night, and my goodness, those supplements do make my sleep deeper. I take quercetin at night sometimes, and I take a probiotic before I go to bed on an empty stomach. P3OM are probiotics that improve your digestion and nutrient absorption. They help ensure your digestive tract and immune system stay strong and healthy, and I pop one just before I go to bed at night. It's at bioptimizers.com/zestology if you want to take advantage of a little kind of introductory offer and stock up on them, see if you like them. And you can use the code Zestology10 wherever you are in the world. So at the Bioptimizers website, or if you're in the UK, go to bioptimizers.co.uk and use that code Zestology10 and pop a probiotic tonight. Maybe it'll make you dream better. I don't think it will actually, but I don't know. I suppose some of these supplements might help. I always thought when I was taking L-theanine in the evenings, maybe that would help the dreaming a little bit. But anyway, if you've got any good ones for dreams, let me know. And enjoy your probiotics as well. It's the code Zestology10, which will help you out. And thanks for listening. Really enjoyed these last few podcasts that we've had over the last few weeks. We've looked at dreaming. We've looked at the commando mindset. We've looked at how to kind of enjoy work even when you kind of find it a little bit hellish. And we've obviously looked at social media as well. If you missed that one, I don't know if you saw the Social Dilemma program on Netflix, but Tim Kendall from that show is on Zestology. He is one of the main kind of talking heads on that documentary, which has been watched by millions and millions of people around the world. Tim Kendall was on the 4th of January. So if you want to go back and have a listen to that, then that is a really good one. And it's some of the rules that he went over I've been trying to live by over the last few weeks on Zestology. Right, that is it. We've almost got January out of the way of this weird and wonderful time. That's a good thing, isn't it? Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.